The day I watched my HOA president slide a community master key across her clipboard like it was a badge of authority was the day I realized this wasn't about rules anymore. It was about control. And when I saw a contractor behind her actually testing that key on my front door like my home was just another HOA asset, something in me went ice cold. I'm Ethan Walker, 33. I work in network tech. I'm not some loud, combative guy who lives for drama. I moved into Cedar Ridge Estates because it looked peaceful. Trim lawns, quiet evenings, kids on bikes, the whole suburban postcard. I wanted a place where I could breathe, where I could come home, shut the door, and not feel like I was constantly being watched. Yeah, about that. The first time I met Melissa Caldwell, our HOA president, she smiled like she was doing me a favor just by acknowledging I existed. Blonde curls, fitted blazer pearls, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other like she was permanently mid-emergency. She stopped me on my driveway the week I moved in and said, "Welcome to Cedar Ridge. We have standards here. I'll help you stay out of trouble." I laughed, because what else do you do when someone says that with a straight face? Turns out she wasn't joking. Within 10 days, I got my first violation notice. My trash bin was visible from the street for an extra hour. Then it was my car. Apparently I parked too close to the edge of the driveway like the driveway belonged to her. Then my curtains because the color wasn't harmonized with neighborhood aesthetics. I'm not kidding. A harmonization violation. Like my living room was an orchestra and she was the conductor. I kept telling myself, fine, whatever, I'll play along. I'm new. I don't want enemies. But then the real issue started because there's always a real issue with a person like Melissa. The little violations. Those were warm-ups. The thing she wanted was leverage. Behind my house, the property line is clean and simple. I had the survey. I had the closing paperwork. I had the county records. There's a strip of land along the edge that's technically an easement for utilities. That's it. No HOA playground, no community access, nothing. Just boring practical stuff. A month after I moved in, I put up a low fence. Nothing crazy. Just a simple waist-high fence inside my property line, mainly to keep strays from cutting through and to give me some privacy. It looked nice. It was straight. It was the kind of fence nobody should care about. Unless you're Melissa Caldwell. She shows up at my door 2 days later, clipboard tucked under her arm, and she says, "You need to remove that fence within 48 hours. I blinked at her. Why? She taps her paperwork like she's tapping the 10 Commandments. It's on HOA easement. I kept my voice calm. It's on my land. I checked the survey. Melissa gave me this little laugh like I was a toddler explaining physics. County records don't override HOA regulations, Ethan. That sentence, right there. It should have been my warning siren, but I was still trying to be rational. I said, "Okay, show me. Let's measure it. Let's look at the deed." She smiled again, that same sweet venom. "We don't need to measure. We already know." Then she handed me the next notice, $75 a day if I didn't comply. $75 a day, over a fence. I emailed the HOA. Polite, professional. I asked for a meeting, asked for documentation, asked for the exact rule I'd violated. I offered to bring my survey, my county map, everything. No response, just another notice, another fee, another final warning. And then, the gate happened. Cedar Ridge has this decorative community gate at the entrance. It's not some high-security fortress. It's basically a fancy metal arch with a keypad that opens for residents. One Tuesday morning, I'm already running late for work coffee and hand laptop bag slung over my shoulder, and I drive up to the gate. The keypad blinks red. The gate doesn't move. I try again. Red. Nothing. I reverse pull forward again like maybe I'm glitching the system. Still red. Then I notice something taped to the post, bright white paper, HOA letterhead, bold text, access suspended, contact HOA office. My stomach dropped. I called the HOA number immediately. After 3 rings, Melissa picks up like she's been waiting. "Ethan," she says, cheerful. "Having trouble. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. My access is suspended." "Why?" "Oh," she sighs like I'm exhausting her. "You're not in compliance. The fence is still up." "That's illegal," I said, and I could hear my own voice shaking. "You can't block me from my own home and the public road." Melissa's tone stayed sugary. We're not blocking you from your home. We're encouraging cooperation. Remove the fence sign, the acknowledgement of violation, and we can restore access. Sign. The acknowledgement. There it was. The payoff. She didn't just want the fence down. She wanted me to admit I was wrong on paper so she could own me forever. I sat there trapped behind a stupid metal gate, feeling my face burn with rage and humiliation. I was late for work. My neighbors were lining up behind me. People were honking. And I could practically feel Melissa smiling through the phone. I ended up parking outside the gate and walking back to my house like some kind of criminal who'd been kicked out of his own neighborhood. It sounds dramatic, but that walk past manicured lawns, past friendly porches where people suddenly wouldn't meet my eyes, felt like a public punishment. That night I spread all the notices on my kitchen table. The fines, the threats, the intent to place lien letter, because they escalated to that fast. I stared at the words like they were written in another language. And for the first time, I questioned myself. What if I really missed something? What if that fence is on some weird HOA claim I didn't understand? What if I'm the new guy making waves and I'm about to destroy my finances over pride? I remember sitting there in the dark, the only light coming from the stove clock, and thinking, maybe I should just take it down. Maybe I should sign whatever paper she wants. Maybe I should just surrender so I can go back to living. That thought made me feel sick. Not because it was wrong, because it was tempting, because giving up would be easier. And that's when I realized that's exactly what Melissa was counting on. The next morning I got a knock on my door. I opened it, and there was Grace Miller, my neighbor from 2 houses down. 60-ish, short gray hair eyes like she's seen every kind of nonsense and doesn't flinch anymore. She didn't even say hello first. She just held up a thick folder and said, "She's doing it again." I stared. Doing what? Grace stepped inside like she lived there. Melissa. She picks someone, finds something tiny, then squeezes until they break. Happened to the Johnsons. Happened to Mark in 22B. People just fold because they're scared. She opened the folder on my table. Inside were old meeting minutes, written complaints, printed emails, and a county easement map, an official one with a stamp and everything. Grace tapped it. This is the real easement, utilities only, not HOA property, not community access. She knows that. My heart started pounding. Then how is she? She lies, Grace said simply. And she counts on you not having the energy to fight. That was the moment something in me shifted. Not because I suddenly became fearless, but because I felt stupid for almost letting her rewrite reality. I installed cameras that same day. Doorbell cam, 2 exterior cams. Everything recorded. I called the county records office and requested certified copies of my property, survey the easement details, the plat map. I emailed Melissa again, but this time the tone was different. Not angry, clear. I have county documentation confirming the fence is within my property line. Your suspension of access is unlawful. Restore my access immediately. Further interference will be documented. No response. So I called a real estate attorney, Daniel Brooks. Calm voice, sharp mind. He looked over the documents and said, "Ethan, they can't do this. If they're blocking your access or threatening a lien based on false claims, we can hit them hard." I wanted to believe him, but part of me still felt like I was up against a machine. HOA boards feel like that, like they're untouchable because they're wrapped in paperwork and community language. Then Saturday happened. I was in my kitchen when I heard tires on gravel. Not a neighbor car, slow, deliberate. I walked to the window and saw Melissa in the street, with 2 HOA board members behind her and a contractor carrying a toolbox. My stomach flipped. I stepped outside and Melissa lifted a hand like we were buddies. "Good morning, Ethan. We're here for an inspection." "An inspection of what?" I asked. She smiled. "Your property. The HOA has the right to ensure compliance when there's an ongoing violation." I kept my voice steady. "You don't have the right to enter my home." Melissa's smile didn't crack. "Oh, we won't need to enter if you cooperate." And then I saw it. The contractor pulled out a key ring. He held up one key, in particular shiny new, and he walked right toward my front door. I felt my entire body go hot. "Stop," I said loud enough that my own voice startled me. "What the hell is that?" Melissa tilted her head. "The community master key. For emergencies." "For emergencies," I repeated, and my laugh came out sharp, almost ugly. You made a key to my house." The contractor, to his credit, looked uncomfortable, like he'd been told this was normal and now he wasn't so sure. Melissa shrugged like it was nothing. "We need access in case of safety issues. Your non-compliance creates risk." I stepped between this contractor and my door. "Back away from my house. Right now. You don't have permission to touch my locks. You don't have permission to be on my property." Melissa's eyes narrowed. "Ethan, don't make this worse." I pulled out my phone and started recording. My hands were shaking, but my voice got steady in a way I didn't recognize. "I am refusing entry. I am telling you to leave. This is being recorded. If anyone attempts to enter my home, I'm calling the police." Melissa's mouth tightened. "Go ahead." So I did. I called 911 and I stayed right there on my porch, blocking my own front door like it was a battlefield line. The HOA members shifted awkwardly. The contractor stepped back. Melissa stood perfectly still, chin lifted like she was daring the universe to prove her wrong. When the police arrived, I didn't rant. I didn't scream. I handed the officer my phone with the video. I showed him the gate suspension notice. I showed him the HOA email where Melissa told me to sign an acknowledgement to regain access. I showed him the county-stamped easement map. The officer turned to Melissa and asked, "Do you have a court order?" "A warrant. Anything that gives you authority to enter this residence." Melissa blinked. "We're the HOA." The officer didn't even raise his voice. "That doesn't answer my question." For the first time since I'd met her, Melissa looked unsure. Not scared exactly, but the mask slipped. She was used to people folding, to people apologizing, to people being intimidated by her clipboard. She wasn't used to an officer standing on a porch looking her in the eye, waiting for a real legal answer. Melissa tried to pivot. "He's violating community rules." The officer held up his hand. "Ma'am, this is a private residence. If he told you to leave and you refuse, that's trespassing. And if anyone tries to enter, that's a bigger problem." I watched her swallow. I watched her glance at the contractor like she wanted him to magically fix the situation. Instead, the contractor quietly put the keyring away. Grace, of course, had come outside by then. She stood near the sidewalk with her arms crossed, looking like a judge waiting for a verdict. Daniel Brooks sent a cease and desist that afternoon. Formal, sharp. Demand to restore gate access. Stop fines, stop threats, stop harassment. Confirm in writing that no master key existed or would be created again. He also requested the board's documentation for every claim Melissa had made. And that's when the neighborhood started to wake up. Because when you shove someone hard enough, sometimes you don't just hit the person, you hit the truth underneath. Grace got signatures for an emergency recall meeting. People who'd stayed silent suddenly had stories. Fines that made no sense. Threats, inspections, intimidation. All the stuff people brushed off because they didn't want conflict. At the meeting, Melissa tried to perform. She stood at the front, tried to talk over everyone, tried to paint herself as the guardian of property values. But then Grace stood up, held up my printed county map, and said loud and clear she locked the gate to force him to sign a false confession. She brought a contractor with a key to his front door. That isn't management. That's abuse. The room went dead quiet. Melissa opened her mouth, and for once nothing useful came out. The vote happened fast after that. Not because people were angry, though they were, because people were done being scared. The board moved to remove her as president effective immediately, and the motion passed. Melissa sat there stiff as a statue, staring straight ahead like she could will the moment into rewriting itself. And as she gathered her papers, still clutching that clipboard like it was the last piece of power she had, I leaned in just enough to make sure she heard me and said calmly, "My house isn't your property, and my door isn't your decision." She didn't respond. She just walked out, and for the first time since I moved into Cedar Ridge Estates, it felt like I could breathe again. Lesson learned: the moment someone claims they have a right to your home, you stop negotiating and you start proving them wrong.